Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 268. What would you do if you weren't doing this PhD? Yes, this is our next instalment in the Rescue Yourself series. What would you do if you weren't doing this PhD? The whole vlog is based around that question, or the version of the question that you'll use for the rest of your life. What would I be doing if I wasn't doing this? Right. Now, the reason this question exists is we spend so much time in a doctoral program complaining about our supervisors, complaining about the people in the lab, complaining about the progress of other people, and just the institution is not supporting you. And, you know, we use a lot of labels, we use a lot of bad language, and we refer to this person over there as sort of nasty pants, or that problem over there, my ex-best friend, what a cow she was, right? And we often refer to our bosses or our supervisors as requiring even a carer to go and use the facilities, okay? So everybody around us is worthy of complaint. So if you think about it, the nature of a doctoral program is our focus is on everything that is going wrong, the problems, the people, complaining about how things could be better. Now, sometimes this type of narrative leads to catastrophizing that we talked about a couple of vlogs ago. But mostly what this outward spit at the world does is it relinquishes power. It stops you, it stops us being the stars of our own lives. And if you think about it, it focuses all the attention on the people out there who are supposedly doing us harm. So today I want to silence all that noise. And I just want to ask a simple question. If your life is so horrific, if your thesis is so dreadful, if everyone around you is so incredibly incompetent, then why are you here? So today's vlog's doing something powerful. It's asking you to summon an alternative. Instead of complaining about everything that's going wrong in your life, it's asking you to answer that question. If you think about it in a different way, what I'm going to do in the vlog today is like the last 20 minutes of the film It's a Wonderful Life, right? And in this case, we're not going to take Jimmy Stewart out of the story. What we're going to do is take your PhD out of your story. So I want you to really, really think about what you would be doing if you weren't doing this PhD. And you may discover, like the Jimmy Stewart character George Bailey, that this PhD actually does have value for you. It's very easy to sit in your present. It's very, very easy to complain about your present. And think about all the complaints that PhD students summon. I get them all the time. Let me list them for you. Why am I doing this? I'll never finish it. My supervisor's a moron. My supervisor is incompetent. My supervisor is lazy. Everyone in the lab hates me. I'm never going to get a job anyway. I'm never going to finish this thing. And that's just a taster. Now, all these phrases are actually about one thing. You believe that you're not good enough, that you don't have the ability to complete a PhD. So instead of actually addressing that fear, actively addressing that worry, you displace all that personal horror story that you just might not be able to do it on the basis of complaints of others, complaints about your context, complaints about your environment. Now, a PhD certainly has an opportunity cost. It does. So instead of asking the rhetorical questions like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Ask the real one. The real question, come on. What would you be doing if you weren't doing this? Now that's a powerful question because it asks you to remember with clarity, with honesty, the reality of your life before you entered a PhD program. It asks you to think about your past without nostalgia, without harking to the good old days. You did this PhD for a reason. And that's why I get my PhD students the week before they start their enrolment to list the 10 motivations, the 10 reasons why they've decided to do this PhD. And the reason I do that is in tough times, they go back to that list of the 10 reasons and they remember. They remember what pushed them into this program. So it is always significant every day that you remember who you were before this PhD started. You remember the limitations of your working environment then. The limitations, the dreadful boss, the lack of fulfillment, the lack of alternatives. So I'm asking you that you remember the pull factors into the PhD and the push factors that moved you out of your previous life. It may simply have been, your trigger may simply have been that deep, powerful truth that education gives you choices. So in a time where in our lives at the moment, so little has meaning and so few choices are available to us, the PhD is the engine room that allows you to push forward in your life and make choices. Therefore, whatever hell you may be confronting in your PhD today, remember that you're in that hell for a reason. And the reason you started this was to make a change in your life. You did this to give yourself choices. You changed your life because something wasn't quite right personally or professionally for you. So you wanted a challenge. You wanted passion. You wanted to activate imagination. You wanted to live a life of colour rather than black and white. So be careful what you wish for, because you get all of that in your PhD. If it helps you, the PhD is a train in your career. It puts your career on rails and it moves it forward to the next stop. So in tough times for the planet, in tough times for the workplace, wow, it keeps you moving. It makes you competitive for jobs, obviously, because you've got something that only 1% of the world's population holds. That makes you competitive. And if you also think about it, you have all the attributes that are supposedly required in the contemporary knowledge economy. You are a self-starter. You finish what you begin. You manage time, you manage tasks, you have the capacity to talk with multiple audiences, you understand stakeholders, and you are able to create deliverables for those stakeholders. That's everything that the knowledge economy requires of a worker, and the PhD confirms that you have that. Now, the PhD does not answer every question that you have in your life. The PhD is not the transporter on the Starship Enterprise. It doesn't just sort of beam you to your dream location. But it is a train. It moves you forward in difficult times. And look, we are living in difficult times, and the pandemic certainly focused our minds on that. But in tough times, the best thing that any of us can ever do is to educate ourselves. And I'll tell you why. Time passes. Time passes, whether you're watching Netflix, you're cooking, or you're reading something for your PhD. And the one guarantee I can give you is if you're alive, the one guarantee I can give you is you are going to die. And in that space between living and dying, time is going to pass, whatever you do with that time. And in tough times, here it comes, the opportunity cost in doing a PhD, taking 3 years of your life, is much lower than when the times are good. Because let's be honest, let's do this. The economy is going to take years to recover from this. The service economy in particular is going to take years. And think about what's happened to the health industries. What's happened to education. These industries have been configured for crisis, and it's going to take many years to get them out of that crisis management. Okay, so during this time, there's not a huge amount of advancement. There's not a huge amount of coin that anybody can make at this point, except for a very few industries, because the world is trying to stop people from dying. The world is trying to vaccinate the entire population. And you're doing a PhD. You're doing a PhD in tough times. Why are you doing it? To better yourself, to skill yourself up. And you're skilling yourself up for the good times. So you're not losing out on the great jobs at the moment, because all those great jobs will take a couple of years to return. So what would you do if you weren't doing this? You'd be in volatile, unstable employment, underemployment, or unemployment. That's real. So the opportunity cost is low. So I want you to start to see the social and the economic context around this PhD with clarity. It's been a very, very long time since a student arrived in my office and said to me, Tara, I'm going to leave the PhD program. The job that I wanted to get at the end of it, I've actually been offered now. So I'm going to leave the program because I've got the dream job. Now, the last time a student came into my office, and I remember the young lad really well, was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, where a young lad came in, got the job I wanted to get at the end of the PhD. It's been a pleasure, knock yourself out. And that was great, and I wished him well. Fantastic. And I think he's still in that job too. But the reason it's been 15 years since that lad was in my office is because employers right now can choose people every time that have a PhD. They don't have to go into a PhD program to find a well-qualified and great human being, because there's plenty of well-qualified, great human beings that hold a PhD. So completing the PhD is what will render you competitive. Therefore, appreciate the time. Recognize that there's not a lot to lose at this point in this type of economy. And you are gaining a qualification that is like a train, and it will move you to the next stop in your career. And I particularly want to talk to all our great students. There are so many of you guys at Flinders University in their 40s and their 50s. So you really have you've had a great career, fantastic career, and you've got on the train of the PhD to move you to the next stop in your career. You were already successful. This PhD is moving you forward to the next stage. So instead of asking, why am I doing this? Really ask, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing this? And you know what? Answer that question with honesty. You are doing this PhD. It is important. It is life-changing. It is career-changing. And most importantly, you are giving yourself choices. There are many reasons for the attrition rates in PhD programs around the world. And I would argue some of the early attritters, the people who leave early, didn't get the motivation right coming in. So if you're going to leave a program in the first year, then you didn't have the right motivation set coming into the program. So we wish you well. I hope you find happiness and success. But the other peak period of attrition in a doctorate is that difficult mid-period, the mid-candidature component, where you're sort of halfway through, the light really isn't at the end of the tunnel yet, and you're asking yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself, yeah? Now, for that group, I really want you to change the question. You know, there is no light at the end of the tunnel yet. I get that. It's dark all around you and you're feeling a bit lost. But what would you be doing if you weren't doing this? And answer that question honestly. The other great problem, I think, is we rarely recognise the gifts that present themselves in our present. Okay? All of us are where we need to be today. We are here, we're enjoying our day, we enjoy the experience of the present. And I think why people don't appreciate the day and appreciate the present is because they're wanting people around them to acknowledge how fabulous they are and their achievements. So, you know, you're wondering, you're just enjoying yourself and, oh, I'm okay, that's great, I'm in my present. And yet you're unhappy in the present because all the people around you aren't acknowledging how tremendous you are. So we've got to get to the point where you say to yourself, I am doing this PhD for me. I am doing the PhD for me and my future. And that's the only way, this is the only point of your life really, where you can be the star of your own life. This is it. This is it. But that carries responsibility. Don't assume that other people will care. They won't. Don't assume that other people are going to recognise your sacrifice. They're making their own sacrifices. They're not too interested in yours. And don't assume that you're the smartest person in the room. Because in a PhD, every room you walk into has a smarter person than you. Hard knowledge. So a PhD is a singular moment in our lives. You are making a statement to the world. I will not live my life the way other people want me to live my life. I will not live my life untested intellectually. I will no longer pretend that my life outside of the PhD was just terrific. You know, what would your life be like outside of the PhD? Who do you really think you would be? Answer that honestly. Do you think you're going to be an Instagram influencer? You're going to write the great novel? You're going to get the dream job in the dream lab? You may do. But you probably won't. Because luck is a very unstable force. Millions of people around the world enter the lottery, bet on horses, gamble, hoping that just life will give them a break, that luck will just make their life a little bit better. But the tough truth of life is the harder we work, the luckier we get. And there's a reason for that. If we move through life, if we meet people, if we challenge ourselves, then there's sort of movement and agency around us. And the more people that we meet and the more stuff that we do, the luckier we become because the opportunities emerge. Dreams are great, but that's why you have them while you're asleep. Goals are hard. And that's why we need them when we're awake. The research shows that the people who attrit from a PhD program, the people who leave, and the people who successfully complete a doctorate have equal intellectual ability. So people don't attrit because they're intellectually lacking. The attritters and the completers have the same intellectual ability. But what are the differences between those groups? The answer is many. But the doctorate is a space whereby on a daily basis you have to personally confront your own limitations. You've got to make this astonishingly courageous statement that I will not fit in with the crowd, that I will not live the life that other people have demanded of me. I will achieve. I will excel. I will test myself. And you know what? I don't know where this is going to go. Because in a PhD, and all research, success is not guaranteed. Our whole culture, if you think about it, is antithetical to a PhD. What does our culture actually value? Well, you need to fit in. Don't be too visible. Comply, comply, comply. And you live the narratives that other people write for you. Instead, the PhD is a punctuation moment in your life. It is the point where you stop living the life that other people want you to lead. The PhD is a fight. It is. It's a battle. It's a battle with the brightest minds in history. It's a battle of discovery. It's a battle of persistence. It's a battle to find meaning. By asking, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing this? This question asks you to remember every day you are in a fight, and you have to continually ask yourself, is it worth this fight? And if I wasn't doing this, what would I be doing? This is such a tough question because it is asking you to confront your limitations. You've always been the brightest person in every class you've ever attended, but you're not the brightest person in a doctoral program. And of course, being bright is only one of the variables that you're going to require. You have to confront the issues that the rest of the workforce ignores. You have to jump towards the unexpected rather than recoil from it. You have to feel the fear and do it anyway. You have to look at all the truths that have been given to you from your parents, from your family, from your partner, from your friends, and realize that most of what you thought was true and right and correct is probably not. And you have to find the courage to discard those old stories and write new narratives. The successful PhD students own this, own their skin in the game, and recognise how many skins they have to discard to make the PhD successful. So this vlog has really been about listening to the stories that repeat in your head. You're not good enough. People will be disappointed. I'm going to fail the PhD. What am I doing here? What am I doing here? Now, these stories keep you stuck in the past. A past that may be coated in nostalgia. A past that is not real. And by being locked in that past that actually isn't real, you are stopping a future emerging. These stories keep reminding you about how you should be living, keeping you stuck and blocking the really, really difficult work that you're going to have to do to manage disappointment in yourself, not in others, and manage failure in yourself, not in others. If you're going to write this new story, then that new story commences with that question. What would I do if I wasn't doing this? And recognizing that you've made a decision to do this PhD. You've made a decision to do this, and you make a decision and a choice every day to keep doing it, knowing what you're not doing. And that, of course, stops us feeling trapped, because that allows us the gift of the capacity to live in the present. All the problems that we experience, begin in our mind. A problem is only a problem because we call it a problem. A fear is only a fear because we call it a fear. But from that label, there's some really good and hard work that we can do. So when you've got a fear, when you've got a problem, ask yourself, is that problem real? Is that fear true? And that's where we start to critique these mantras in our head. I'm useless, I'm going to fail, I'm dreadful, I'm never going to finish. Always remember that you are in a PhD because you choose. You choose to be in a PhD, and you make that choice every day. What would you be doing if you weren't doing this? Means that you start to reveal the pressure points in yourself. How do you manage change? How do you manage difference? How do you manage resistance to your ideas? And for me, the whole point of a PhD is that you honour your possibilities. You honour who you could be. And how rare is it in life that you have an opportunity to honour your potential, believe in your potential. What would I be doing if I wasn't doing this PhD? Well, I would not be honouring my potential. I would not be honouring the person that I could be. You can live in frustration. You can live in uncertainty. Or you can give yourself the freedom to ask the difficult questions. These old stories about who you were served you well, but served you in the past. Perhaps those old stories are now limiting who you are today. So you know what? Give yourself permission to ask fresh questions. Feel the fear of doing something differently. And you know what? Do it anyway. And that is how you rescue yourself. You create a life worth living. You create a PhD worth doing, rather than live a life of neglect, of potential unrealised. I wish you love, light and peace. Tea out.